So, like I said, the last 2 weeks have been talking about data entry. We're going to finish up our session on data entry today, and we're really going to be talking about what I like to call our auxiliary tabs. And so we'll get into that in just a second, but I wanted to take just a few seconds really quickly, and I'm going to talk about this at the end too, but just in case anybody has to drop off before we get to the end, I want everyone to be able to hear this. If you have registered for these Compass chat sessions, which I'm assuming everyone has, or you wouldn't have the meeting information in order to join the meeting, but if you've registered your email with us, next week, Jennifer Marshall, our marketing manager, is going to be sending out a survey. And we're going to basically give you guys the opportunity to speak up and tell us what you want to hear or what you want to see. Like I said, this is going on 10 weeks, and we kind of had an itinerary somewhat thought out in our head of what we wanted to talk about each week. And now we've kind of like wanted to hit the pause button, and now we want to hear from you guys. So we're going to be sending out a survey, and it's going to be asking a couple different things. One, as many of you know, we've been doing these on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Tuesday at 3 o'clock, Thursday at 2 o'clock. And we want to find out if there's better days or times that might work for all of you. So that's going to be the first part of the survey, asking for different days and times that might work better for you. Please do me a favor and don't say Saturday or Sunday. My boss will take that very seriously, and I'll have to work those days, so please don't do that for me. But any other days than that, we'll take days and times on any other days, just Saturdays and Sundays, please. The second thing we want to talk about is topics. Like I said, we've talked about a lot of different stuff in Compass for the last 10 weeks. And we've got a couple more things we want to talk about over the next couple weeks. But after that, we want to kind of hear from you guys. And it doesn't even have to be CMS Compass related. If there's something CMS oriented that you would like to see or have us talk about, that would be great. And like, just to let you know, in the next couple weeks, we're talking about, we're going to do dealer admin discussion, how to be an admin dealer on CMS Compass. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to do a topic 1 week of Message Center. So you guys have heard me talk about Message Center, being a Message Center dealer over the last, 10 weeks. And so we're going to take 1 week and we're going to turn it over to Beth Delker, and she's going to talk a little bit about being a Message Center dealer and what all you can do as a Message Center dealer. So those are two definite topics that are coming up, and they are Compass related. But if there's other things that you might want to see or you're just interested in, how to do something, or you want more information on, fill that out in the survey that you're going to get emailed to you, and return it to us, and that would be greatly appreciated. So like I said, I'll mention that to the side again as we get off of here, just in case anybody joins late, but just in case anybody needs to drop, I want them to hear that as well right now. So let's dive in, right? So let's jump right into our last session of data entry. And like I said, we're talking about the optional tabs of the location page. So many of you have been with us the last few weeks. We've been working on the Ricky and Rennie Rodent account. So we're going to go ahead and pull up the Ricky and Rennie Rodent account. And we're going to continue to work on this account and finish up the data entry on it. Now, like I said, last couple of weeks, we've done the location information. We've done our account information. We did our zones. We've done our contacts. We've done our agencies. So we're in great shape. Those are really the required tabs that we're looking for data-wise in Compass and in Mastermind on our side for the monitoring. Now, there is one other one that we really want you to fill out. It's called the General Dispatch Instructions, and we'll get to that in a second. But, zones, contacts, agencies, and the tabs up here, those are the biggies that we want. So the next ones, you'll see these, and like I said earlier, auxiliary tabs is what I call them. They're not required by any means, but certainly you can use these, and I can hopefully point out a few things that would be beneficial to you if you do use them. Now, the first one we'll look at is schedules, and I'm going to skip this one because we're working on a residential account. So a schedule is what? Well, that's used for a supervised open and closed account. This happens to be a residential account, so it's not going to have a schedule on it. We will come back to our Hertz Donut and Coffee Shop, which is a supervised open and closed account. So we'll follow back up, circle back around to the Schedule tab with the Hertz Donut, and we'll talk about that tab. So we're going to jump that one right now, and we're going to slide into the dispatch instructions and the general dispatch instructions. I get asked all the time, what's the difference between dispatch instructions and general dispatch instructions? And the best way I can explain it is the dispatch instructions are used for an account if there are zones that you want us to handle that are way outside of our box. They're not anywhere close to the standard operating procedure. And, you know, we don't have an event ID that calls for it, and it may be tied to certain days and times that you want us handling that. So, you know, instead of like a regular Berg signal coming in and it being, you know, hey, us call the premises, us call the police department, us call the contact list. Let's say, for example, you've got a customer, and this is going to be very extreme, but we're going to use this as an example for the Ricky and Rennie Roden account. But let's say that they've got, for the Berg Zone special instructions, they don't want us to call those in the regular order. So they say they want us to call Rennie, and then call Dobie, who's second on the contact list, then call the premises, and then call the dispatch PD, then call the alarm company to notify them of the dispatch, and then call the premise again. Okay? Now, obviously, those are pretty special instructions, right? Those are way outside the norm. There's probably some central stations that would say no to that. But we don't say no. We can accommodate those types of instructions because of the dispatch instructions. So this tab is view only to our Compass users, okay? But that doesn't mean you can't use it, okay? If you get a customer that wants these special type of instructions, call our dealer support. Our dealer support department will create this account, find out what zones that need to be tied to it. They'll create that page, and then you can use Compass to not only reference it and look at it to make sure it looks good, but I'm going to show you in a second where you can even add additional zones to it as well. So we've got one page on here, and you can kind of see the pop-up that keeps coming up, and it's showing the call list order that's way outside the box. But if we want to see some more details, we can click on the page 1 right over here, and that's going to give us a pop-up. And this pop-up is going to show us the special instructions that were added. So these are the notes that our dealer support reps will type in basically for you based on what you're telling them you want. And then here's the call list that gets created. Now, the nice thing about this is the system automatically does this. So when zones 1 or 3 come in, because the customer said, I want these instructions to pertain to zone 1 and 3, the system is automatically going to load these phone numbers for our operators to call, and it will dial those phone numbers. So they're not having to look at notes and all this other stuff on their piece of paper or something typed up on the or pinned up on the wall and following those instructions. This is set up so the system will automatically do it for them. So you'll see, here's the instructions. These instructions are going to match with your call list right down here and the phone numbers that are tied to it. Even to the point where when it says dispatch PD, you'll see the Orange County Sheriff has 2 phone numbers. We'll call both those phone numbers if we have to. Okay? And then, like I said, Ricky wanted us to pertain not all Berg zones, but only zones 1 and 3. So this bottom section will show you which zones these instructions pertain to. Okay? So you'll also notice on these, the event IDs are a little bit different. We talked about zones and event IDs a lot last week. Now, here's another little change up that you need to know, another event ID. Any event ID that is tied to a dispatch page needs to end with 495. That 495 just tells you see page. Okay, and again, we're going to set this up for you in the get-go. So you're going to tell us, you know, what you want us to do and what zones you want us to abide by this, and then we're going to change those event IDs for you. But the cool thing about this is, like I said, you can see all these instructions, and you can see that it's zone 1 and zone 3. But let's say that Ricky calls you up, and he says, hey, I changed my mind. I want it to be zones 1, 2, and 3. And can you add that zone 2 to those special instructions as well? Well, yeah, you can do that. Now you can edit this. You don't have to go in here or call dealer support and ask us to do it. It's a really simple thing to do. You click OK here, and then it says, okay, I want zone 2 as well. So we're going to slide right back to the zone tab, which we talked about last week. And you're going to see zone 2 right now is a BUR025. We spoke about that last week. We know that that's our standard operating procedure. That's BUR025. But if we're going to attach this to the procedure page, what did I just say? It needs to end with 495. So it's going to match what zone 3 is, where it's BUR495. How do I do that? I can either click the Manage Multiple Zones, or since I'm just updating one particular zone, I can do it right here by clicking the pencil. So I click the pencil. Here's my zone 2. Now I just update this to 495. You're going to see that update to see page. And now, right here, you're going to see, and again, I talked about this last week. I didn't talk much about these bottom three, but we're going to talk about it now because procedure page, we're going to attach it to page 1. Okay, there's those special instructions, right? Call Rennie, call Adobe, call Prim, call Dispatch or Dispatch PD, call Alarmco, call Prim. So that's just telling you what those instructions are. Now, when I hit save, watch how this works. You've actually updated the dispatch instructions page because you go in here and we click on page 1, boom, there's zone 2 that's been added to that. I've got my correct event ID in there, BUR495. So you just made Ricky happy without having to make it a couple extra phone calls to CMS to get that updated. So it's really simple for you to add additional zones to an existing dispatch procedure page. Likewise, if he says, I don't want zone 3 anymore, it's real simple to change that as well. Let's do that real quickly. So we go OK on here. We jump right back to the zones, and he says, all I want are my doors. I don't want the hallway motion to be like that. So once again, we're just going to slide back to here to our edit page, and we're going to change our event ID to 025, and then we click by here where it says procedure page, and we just do select procedure page. And we hit save. Now we've updated our hallway motion. It's back to our standard operating procedure. Let's go back to the dispatch instructions. We'll click on this page. Now we should see it's only zone 1 and zone 2. So you see how simple that can be. Now you may have more procedure pages. Maybe they want something handled special with fire. Again, we would have to create a different procedure page, and we can have multiple dispatch pages, procedure pages for an account. So don't think you can only have one. You got to work everything into that box. Now, what I also didn't talk about, I didn't mention yet, was you can do this on even certain days. So let's say that he tells us this is how he wants zones 1 and zone 2 handled, but he only wants it handled like that on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that you can see on here that we've got these instructions set up on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, we're going to handle that just as a regular alarm. So when it comes in as a Berg, we're going to handle it as a Berg. It's only on Tuesdays and Thursdays do these special instructions. So again, it's really nice because our monitoring platform, Mastermind, will automatically pop these instructions and take them into play on those days. All the other days, it completely ignores them. So keep that in mind. So that's your dispatch instructions. We don't use it a ton. Not every account has them on there, and because a lot of people like to just stay nice and standard, they don't have those special instructions. But just know, if you get one of those customers that ask for just something out of the box, and it may seem bizarre, you know, it's worth the effort to go ahead and call dealer support and say, hey, this is what my customer is asking. Can you do that with a dispatch instructions page? Okay, so that's all you have to do. Again, it's always going to be view only to create it, and even delete it. You can't delete the page as well, but you can see the information once dealer support gets that there for you. Okay, now so that's the dispatch instructions page. Then in that case, Jason, what's the general dispatch instructions? Well, it's just like it sounds. It's general information. So this is pretty much on every single account. This is just information that you would want our monitoring reps to pass along to either the responding agencies or the contact list people. So it might be stuff like, we're going to add a dispatch instructions, and you can see it opens up my general dispatch instructions. I'm adding my permanent effective as of today, and here's my RTF editor. I can just go type away. So I can type whatever I want. And when I do that, I'm talking like stuff like gate code, right? A lot of people live in gates. They got their gate code. You want us to pass that along to the agencies if they're not using a special code already. It might be pet dog in house. Please save. And it could be, let's say, subdivision, right? A lot of people live in subdivisions. It could be the nearest major cross street is another one. So we'll just say Main Avenue. Now, if I have something that's really important on my general dispatch instructions, like the pet dog, if I want my pet dog saved, and obviously the customer wants them saved, I might want that to stand out a little bit. I can highlight that line, and now I can do a couple different things. I can change the color to red. I can bold it. I can underline it if I want. Now it's going to stand out a little bit more to the monitoring reps. So when they see that information, they're going to pass that along to the agencies when they're dispatching to them. Likewise, when they call the contact list, they're going to also let them know that that's there. So pet dog in house is good to do. Also, maybe attack dog on premises. A lot of commercial applications or even homes might have a aggressive dog or something like that. We want to pass that information along to them. I've got several dealers who have accounts very far out in the rural area. They will actually use the general dispatch instructions page to put directions on how to get to the premises. GPS, works most of the time, obviously, but just in case, we can give those directions and the street names and everything to the agencies when we're dispatching to them. So general dispatch instructions, exactly what it sounds like, general information that you want us to pass along to the agencies and the contact list. Another thing you might add is if there's a hidden key. A lot of medical accounts might have a key hidden somewhere. We let them know so the paramedics don't break down the door without asking questions. They can try and find that key. So that's our general dispatch instructions. We'll go ahead and hit save. And that got added. So real simple to add your general dispatch instructions. Now, if I need to edit that or something like that, once again, I've got my pencil. I can click in here and I can go, whoop, not 4, it's actually 5. And then I go ahead and hit save, and then it updates that for me. Okay, so again, general dispatch instructions, general information, dispatch instructions, that is specific to special instructions on zones that may come in. Okay, now like I said, these aren't required, but we really, really do like you to get the general dispatch instructions, something on there, because you usually have something on there, even if it's just a subdivision or cross street. Or another thing I didn't talk about earlier was the siren reset. Does it automatically reset? If it does, if it's auto reset, how many minutes? We can pass that along to the responding agencies as well to let them know if they get there after 4 minutes, they're not going to hear the siren sounding because it does an auto reset. So you can add that information to the general dispatch instructions as well. So our next tab is going to be the mail addresses. And you heard me talk about, 2 weeks ago, we talked about the mailing frequency being a holdover from our old days of B32 and MassLink. Mailing address is very similar to that. It's also a holdover and a carryover from those days. And what the mailing address is used for is if you are running a mail-out report, albeit like a scheduled report or on-demand report, either one, but if it's a mail-out report and you are sending that to someone that is not on the address or on the premises address, so the location information is 1 Southwest Magical Drive. If I'm going to print out a mail-out report for this account, but I want to send it to someplace else in Longwood, Florida, then I can add that mailing address to here. Now, do you need to do that? Well, if you're emailing it to them, probably not. But we still have some dealers that are printing these reports out and they're actually stuffing them in envelopes and they're mailing those to the people. A lot of times where that works out is, let's say you've got a corporate company that has 10 or 12 or 15 different accounts. You're sending all those mail reports not to the locations themselves, but to those corporate address. So you could put that corporate address on here. Real simply, you click on the blue mail button, and then you're just going to put in the name, whatever you want it to be, the address. And again, this is what's going to show in the top left-hand corner of the mail-out report. And again, it's a mail-out report only. I'll stress that a couple of times. It doesn't work for the event history report or any of that stuff. It's mail-out only. So I'm stressing and talking a little bit more about this than I typically do because it's not used hardly at all, because most people do create their scheduled reports and they just automatically send the email and the email goes to those people. They're not hard copy mailing them anymore. But just in case you ever need to do that, or you are already doing it and you just want to find out how to do it for a new account for a company or a customer, then it's the mail address tab right there. and you can go ahead and just click the blue from mail address, or if you need to update it, it will be listed right here, and you can click the pencil, edit it, and be done with that. Okay, so the mail address is there for you. Another reason you might use that is you might have this comes in handy a lot for our companies that have a lot of medical accounts. They may have a medical caretaker or a company medical caretaker that has a lot of accounts out there, and they send a report, and it doesn't have to be open and close only. It just has to be a mail-out report. So they send those mail-out reports to the medical caretakers for all of their accounts so they can see those. So they're not sending them to the site address or anything like that. They're sending them to the caretakers. So that's what the mailing address is used for. Now, these new tabs down here at the very end, like I said, brand new. We had a lot of people with CMS Connect ask us for a place to add notes to the account. And these are notes that have nothing to do with CMS, or at least the monitoring part of it. They are strictly for the dealer, and all your dealer logins can see this. Your customer can't see it if they're using My Alarms. CMS people cannot see it from Mastermind, so our monitoring reps will not see these notes. So these are just some place that you can add notes. What can you use these for? Well, you can use them for, let's say you might want to use it for the extended warranty date and information. You could do that, or you could do the last inspection date that you did that. You can add that. You can add, there is no maximum number of notes that you can add to an account. So we'll just say on this one here, we'll call this one a do not call. And you just go down here and you just add it, and you say, Ricky loves the parade. Don't call during the parade. Okay, so then what you want to do with that, you'll save it, and now that you have a note on your account and you start using your notes, you want all your people, if you pull up an account, you just tell them, hey, if you're pulling up the Roden account or you pull up any account under our dealer number, you want to go ahead and click on the notes if you see a red font, because that means it's got some notes on there. So, you know, this could keep me from getting in trouble if I was getting ready to call Ricky during the parade, because this tells me don't call him during the parade, so I'm going to go ahead and wait, and I'll call him a little bit later. Okay, so that's the type of stuff you can use the notes for. Again, whatever you guys might want to use. If you got more notes you want to add something different instead of a do not call note, you know, click on add note, go ahead and add it, and then it's just going to keep listing them down there. Okay, you can export these if you need to, and you can edit them, and you can also delete them. And just FYI, I do have some permission roles set up that allow for no deletion of notes. So once they've been created, the person cannot delete them. That was a little bit of a concern early on, was that if I created the note, my technician could go in behind me and delete the note, and no one would know about it. So I changed my technician's permission role to cannot delete notes. So he can edit them, he can add them, he cannot delete them whatsoever. So we can do that for you as well for your notes. All right, so that's your notes tab. It's a little bit different up here. You'll notice different than the zones contacts agencies. If you were with me the last couple of weeks, these are red font when there's no information on it, whereas this tab and this tab are going to be red font when there's information. Okay, so a little confusing, a little flip-flop, right? But it's really easy for you to see when you pull up the location. When if I pull up Ricky and Rennie Roden, I can immediately see there's information on the Notes tab. I want to go to the Notes tab immediately and click on that. Okay, so that's my notes. So what's next to that? Well, that's Zone Notes, and this is brand spanking new. Okay, what this does is allows the customer or the dealer to put notes on the actual zones themselves. So different stuff, and again, this is going to be stuff that's not pertaining to monitoring reps, dealer support reps. This is strictly for you, the dealer. And if you just got some information that you want on maybe the sensors that you use, you can do that. So if I went in here and I can say, you know, I can say, okay, this is a hardwire, and I might do the type, right? And this is going to be hardwired. Woo. And maybe my hallway motion isn't. Maybe that's going to be a wireless, and version 2.0, right? So I can just keep notes here, and you can see I can add a lot of information here, and that's, again, strictly for you guys if you want information on those particular sensors that you have. If you want to know whether they're hardwired, whether they're wireless, that comes in handy later on down the road when you're wanting to do service or you're wanting to do any kind of firmware update. You could also do, maybe we do this. Battery changed 0620. So we can add that information in there too, so we know when the battery was changed on that sensor. All we do there is we hit save, and now we have our notes on there. And I apologize, I said wrong. Zone Notes does not change red if there's information on it. Only the Notes tab actually changes to the red font. Zone Notes does not. But now you can see that information there as well. And again, I've got my icon up here in the top right-hand corner where I can export this information as well and send it over to my technician if I need to. If he's in the field, he doesn't have his phone with him, or he doesn't have his tablet with him to see this information, I can send that over to him so he can see the Zone Notes. Zone Notes do not print out on the reports. They don't come over to or to CMS people. Your customers aren't going to see them. They're strictly used for you guys to just talk about whatever the sensors are. So that's your Zone Notes. So we've talked about dispatch instructions. We've talked about general dispatch instructions, mail address, notes, and Zone Notes. Now, let's circle back to our last tab on our location page. That's our schedules. So let's jump up here to the Hertz Donut and Coffee Shop. And this is a supervised open and close, so it's going to have a schedule on it. Now, schedules are similar to dispatch instructions, whereas you cannot create a brand new schedule on an account. Okay, so the very first setup part, you can basically do all the data entry, but when it comes to creating the main first schedule, you will have to contact dealer support, and they'll get that created for you. The difference between dispatch instructions and schedules, though, is you can edit the schedules once it gets on here. So, case in point, let's look at the schedules on here. And when we click on the Schedules tab, we're going to see, here's the account number that's on. We're looking at the permanent. We might have a temporary. We might be able to see our holidays. So we can go in there and add holidays if we need to, right? There's none on here, but let's just say, for example, we've got July 4th coming up, right? They're going to be closed that day. I can hit save, and now the system, our monitoring system, is going to know that this site is closed and not expect an open or a close on July 4th. Okay, so you can do that yourself. You don't have to call dealer support to add different holidays on there, and that just helps. Again, we talk about trying to limit the amount of phone calls that the monitoring reps are making. If you go in there and add holidays to it, the system doesn't look for those opens and closes on those days, and then we're not making those extra phone calls for nothing because the customer says, well, I'm not opening today. It's July 4th. Why would I be open on July 4th? Okay, and then they get frustrated a little bit because we're calling. So you can be proactive and do that from Compass. You don't have to make those calls to dealer support to ask us to add them. And so that's the way you can do your holidays. Temporary you can do as well. You can go in here and add a temporary schedule that will supersede the main permanent schedule, and you can do all that. You just type in what you want, the days and times, and then you build that temporary schedule from there. So you're seeing a little bit what I mean by you can do more with the schedules than you can the dispatch instructions. Now let's go back to the permanent so we can see what that looks like. So this got set up. They're opening and closing 7 days a week. Okay, and you'll see the little blue bar graph right here showing you what the days and times. And you can edit these. But here's a little trick. A lot of people have trouble with either dragging this and stuff like that. What I do is if, let's say, here's Sunday, if I need to adjust the Sunday hours, I just double click the bar, and now my edit time slot box pops up. Now I can look at Sunday to Sunday. We're currently open from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. Now the customer says, nope, I want to be opening at 7:30 a.m. I want to get that earlier crowd, and I want to go to the later crowd. We're going to change that to 5:30. So now that's a lot easier to do, right? You click on here and do it, and you can see those numbers right there instead of just dragging this. And that comes in handy, too, if they're opening and closing not on the half hour or on the top of the hour. Now you can see my bar graph changed, so that's nice, but it's a lot easier, to do it with the box than it is dragging it. Like I said, if I wanted it to be 7:45 or 7:15 or something like that, I definitely have to do it from here. You can see here I've only got the lines for the top of the hour and the half hour. Okay, so that's a little cheat that I like to tell people about. Not cheat because we built it in there for them, but it's just easier that way. So you just double click on the box, the day that you're wanting to do. You'll see the day, the end of the day, and then the start time and end time, and you can adjust that accordingly. Okay, so that's your schedule, and again, you can update a permanent schedule. This is the permanent schedule, and once you update and hit save, it's done. Okay, so that comes in handy for your customers that have the supervised open and close, and they're changing their times a lot. And when you set us up, we were opening at 7:30, but we don't open at 7:30 anymore. We open at 8. It's easy to make that change. And again, we won't start getting that late to open or early open or fail to open because you're going to go in there and update the start time. And so that's going to make it easier. Now, you may also have some customers out there, we've talked about this in the past few weeks too, that are opening or closing outside of their windows. And when we set the account up, we set the windows up per whatever you tell us. Now, we call it grace periods right here. So this is telling you that they have a 30-minute window to open. So that means this customer can open anywhere between 7 a.m. and 7:30 a.m., and it's not going to set off an alarm per se. Okay, it's going to be just fine. Now, if they opened at 6:55, that's outside of that 30-minute window, so it's going to trip that signal to come to us that it's an early open. We're going to make phone calls on it probably. So your early open is 30 minutes. My late open is 15. And remember, I changed this one to 7:30, so that means that I can open as late as 7:45, and it's not going to, quote-unquote, trip an alarm for a late open. So that's my window, my 15-minute window. Just like my opens, I've got my early and my late closes as well. My close is only 5 minutes, so I want them closing, as close to 5 o'clock or 4:30, whatever particular day it is, as possible, or I am okay with that tripping. Now, if by chance you're watching this and you're seeing that we're making a lot of phone calls because, hey, the late to close, they're closing 15 minutes late almost all the time. They're not closing 5 minutes late. Then you want to talk to your customer and say, hey, let's change this to 15 minutes. Because you guys are constantly somewhere between the 5-minute range and the 15-minute range. And if I extend this out to 15 minutes, then it's not going to trip that alarm, and you're not going to be getting calls from the monitoring center all the time. So you can change these grace periods to work with your customers. And if you remember right, we go way back to our dashboard. First week, right, we were talking about, the very first week we were talking about heads-up display and looking at our, and I hit them, so you can't see them. We were looking at our heads-up display and our alarms and dispatches, but we were looking at our opens and close exceptions. So this one right now I don't have any on, so it's all blank, which is really nice, right? But if you look at these, a lot of times you can see your offenders, and those are the companies you want to call and talk to and possibly either change and edit the schedule, opened and closed time, or just edit the grace periods there. So you can do that. Now, I forgot to hit save like a bad boy, so let's change this back to 15 minutes. We'll go ahead and hit save, and now that's been updated. So now I've got my updated time on Sunday. I've got my updated grace period to 15 minutes. Hopefully that's not going to be dropping. A late close is not going to be dropping to the CMS reps anymore. Okay? So a lot of different things you can do with the schedule once CMS builds it for you. Now the nice thing about this too is if you've got a customer, let's say that Hertz Donut and Coffee Shop wants access to My Alarms. Again, My Alarms is CMS Compass for the end user per se. So if they wanted access to that, you can give them access to the schedule themselves. They can also go in and adjust this information if you want them to. Why not let them do it? If they're the ones getting called and they're the ones getting frustrated, they can adjust that. Don't have to be. It could still be view only, and then they could say, hey, if it doesn't look right, call us and we'll update it for you. But the other thing they can do as well is they can change the next expected open or close time. We've talked a little bit about that in the past, but that's something that your customers can do if you give them access to SMS notifications and access to My Alarms. They can adjust the, hey, we're doing inventory today. We're not closing at 5 o'clock. We're going to close at 6 p.m. They can be proactive, go onto My Alarms and change the next expected close time to be 6 o'clock. And again, that would save the time of a monitoring rep that dropping to them when they didn't close at 5 o'clock. They'll know that their close time is supposed to be at 6 o'clock, and they'll be expecting that. So once again, that would just save that operator-handled alarm. So those are our tabs. So we've talked about all of our tabs. We've done all of our data entry. I hope this covers everything for everybody. It's, we've got dealers. I tell everybody when I work with them one-on-one, they ask, well, how many of your dealers do full access, or do all their data changes? And I've got a lot of dealers that do everything. They don't allow us to touch their data. They build the shells and they do all the new data. They do all the editing. I've got some customers that, they might have us build the brand new account, so that we can add the schedules and stuff like that. And then they'll edit the account information from there on out, and place it out of service if it ever needs to be canceled or anything like that. And everything in between. So, if by chance anyone that's watching this, hopefully this helps you understand how easy it is to do the data. But, if you get to the point where you go, zones I don't quite get. I'll do everything but the zones. You can send the zones into CMS and we'll update those until you get 100% comfortable with them. Like I said, you could have us build the zone page for you, and then you edit them down the road. Until you get used to it. So it works either way. We don't hold anybody's feet to the fire as far as doing your data entry, but I think over the last 3 weeks, I've shown you that it's really easy to do your own data entry, and it really eliminates any kind of delay that you might have in the time that, let's say, the technician fills out the data entry sheet, brings it over to you, you can't read it, so there's no way a CMS dealer support rep's going to be able to read it. So you're going to go ahead and type it up. By the time you typed it up and then email it over to dealer support, you could have typed that up in Compass and it'd been done. Because if you type it up and email it over to us, it goes into what we call our DocuWare system, and it goes into a queue, and then our next available data entry rep gets to it and they'll do the data entry. Usually not a huge delay, but possibly it could be a delay, whereas if you're using Compass to do it, bam, it's done. You hit the save button and it's done. It's in the system. So there's no questions whatsoever at that point.